everything's installed and on. We're going out for yet another cruise, and I thought I think I got a tune in here that I can play on this radio here that will not upset the copyrights. So let's see. There's the antenna. All right. Oh yeah, you can hear it fine. All right. Hello folks, and welcome to my truck. In part one, I received the radio and unboxed it and bench tested it to make sure everything was good. And in part two, we installed it, got it installed in this truck. So I figure I'll just go ahead and do a part three and do a little review on the radio and give some of my thoughts on it as they occur on this cruise. So stay tuned. Well, some quick thoughts on it. Number one, I'm having no problem hearing it. It sounds actually pretty good to have some tunes. I'm not used to that antenna yet. It's kind of like it doesn't belong there. On second thought, maybe I would have went with the amplified hidden antenna, but I wanted to be kind of period correct, and that's where an antenna would have been, so that's where I'm at. Display, I can barely read it. It's just like the one I put in my more modern truck, and that's at the highest intensity, so all you see is the AM dial, which is okay. You look hard, get in the shade, you can see it. And but it is nice having some tunes going down the road. All right. I shouldn't violate the copyright on that song either. All right. It's kind of fitting going down. Of course, this ain't a country road. Anyway, just an update. Another quick update. My ammeter's been showing charge ever since I started. Now, I ran the battery quite a bit when I was installing this radio yesterday, and in a couple occasions I left the ignition on, which draws a significant amount of current too, especially if the points are closed. So anyway, I'm gonna turn the radio off and see if the ammeter. All right, let's turn it off. Let's see. Radio's off. We're still showing the charge, so I bet you the radio's just the system's just charging and picking back up. All right. More traffic around here today than normal. All right. Got a few things to get done up here at the church today for the upcoming Christmas pageant. So anyway, we'll talk at you later. Well, yeah, let's see. Yeah, we're still showing that charge. Now, you know, I never did pay attention if the charge was there when when it was off, because I've got that always hot lead going to the radio. Oh well, okay. Yeah. Well, all right. We're still checking it out. All right, radio update number. Well, I don't even know what number this is. I've a couple stations that that I normally can barely get in this area. I cannot pull in at all with this. So that's kind of disheartening a little bit. But I'll try them when I get closer in to see if I can get them, because I am out and about. And it is kind of out of the range of one of my favorite stations. And the display is virtually unreadable. I've got it at the maximum brightness, and I guess I could try some different colors, but you can't even really see, because since it aims up, it tilts up, it's catching the sunlight directly. You know, I don't mean to knock this radio too much as far as the display. I put a Garmin in the GMC, and I've even put a little cover over it to try to shade the display on it, because I'm using that as a speedometer. You know, the speedometer function on the GPS part, and you can barely read that display too. So it's not that like this is limited to this particular radio. And I think that since the radio's you know, at a slant aiming up, just kind of exacerbates the problem where the sunlight's really, you know, just flooding it out. Now I also put I may have mentioned this earlier, but I put a 2-DIN radio in my Ford pickup, my more modern pickup, and its display is barely readable too, in the daylight. So it's not, and it's a different manufacturer than this. So I guess it is. That was a more popular brand I put in the Ford. So anyway, seems like you know, that's a kind of a common theme with these aftermarket radios and their display intensity. But anyway, I'm not trying to suggest that I'm unhappy. That's not the case. It's just, you know, just pointing out, you know, things as I find them. All right, just cruising and thinking, and another radio update. My ammeter is about zeroed out, so all that time that I was running that battery on this radio install, and also leaving the key on longer than I, you know, after I turned the radio, I realized, and I left the key on, that it really discharged the battery pretty good, enough to where it's taken a while for it to recharge it, but it's about zeroed out now, so it's where it's supposed to be, and the radio's on. Just got the volume down, so the radio's not the draw, it's just me playing around. Drew it down some, and so anyway, I thought I'd update that. And what we got here? All right, we're all right. That's what I used to do, telephone man. But anyway, and I figured out how to do the manual channel change on this thing. You've got to go into program mode, set it to manual, and then you can turn the knob, and it will actually step through all the possible channels without seeking. And once you stop for over like 3 seconds, or you hit a preset to set it, it's back at its default of seek, and you've got to go back and program again and set it to manual. To tell you the truth, I'd rather it be in manual at all times instead of being seek. And the manual is kind of misleading. It kind of makes you think that once you change it that it stays that way, but apparently not, unless there's some kind of software update or something. So anyway, I'll research that too, but at least I figured out how to get it to some weaker stations that it skips when it does search, which hopefully when I get back in range will be my favorite. Well, you get up there, I mean, I like my tunes, but I also like a little bit of talk radio too. So anyway, see you again. Alright, I'm going to give a review on the Custom Autosound USA 740 radio. Now I've been calling it custom radio, custom audio, but the actual manufacturer of this radio is Custom Autosound, and the model is USA 740, and it's got the kit or the faceplate that adapts it to 47 through 52 AD trucks. I don't know if there's a difference from 53 up, I don't know, but that's what it says on the paperwork that came with it. Now I did get a user manual, and I went on their site and I went on the web looking for installation instructions, and I didn't see a whole lot that had anything to do with putting one of those radios in an AD truck. AD is the terminology used for advanced design, and that's kind of what's referred to the Chevrolet pickups from 1947 to 1955.1. Yeah, and the year 1955, they actually they ran an AD model halfway, and then they introduced what they call the Task Force series from that point on. So anyway, so that the AD trucks are covered in that. I'll go over likes and dislikes of the radio. This truck never had a radio, so I didn't know what I was going to run into to install a radio in it. I knew it had the delete plate, and well, it ended up there was no problem removing the delete plate. I was thinking it was going to be hard, but the hardest part is squeezing this size body in between the pedestal of the seat and the toe wall, firewall, and all the pedals and everything. So if that pedestal could be easily removed like late model cars, then it would be a breeze to install these. But you got to squeeze in there. So that's not got anything to do with this radio. That's got to do with any radio. Well, actually, that's got to do with installing the heater like I did, or anything that you got to get under the dash. It's just tight. The smaller you are, and the better it is. So I'll put it to you that way. I'm well fed, and I'm not as limber as I used to be. So it's kind of tough getting under there. But that's not, again, that's not a negative on the radio. So I'm going to cover some of the positives. The first positive I want to cover is that the radio installed without any modifications needed to the dash. I didn't have to bend, cut, drill, or modify anything to get that radio into that dash. It fit perfectly. That's pretty good. That's a really good thing, because I don't want to alter this truck any more than I have to. I want to keep it as close to period correct as I can, and that includes not cutting unnecessary holes or butchering up good metal just to adapt something new to it. So positive number one, the radio bolted right in, no modification needed. Positive number two, the speakers, it's a speaker kit that has two 3.5-inch speakers. I can't remember the ounce of the magnets, but the speakers are 3.5 inch. They sit side by side. They mount in a piece of plastic, and they have a metal bracket. And after I deciphered it, I didn't get any instructions with this radio because I didn't buy it new. Perhaps they included instructions new. I don't know. I would hope they did. But after I ciphered it out, I decided that I would connect the speaker assembly to the radio and make it one rigid assembly. And it matched right up. Again, no problems. Of course, now Custom Autosound made those speakers, that speaker kit also. So it bolted right up. I screwed it on together, and I made it one solid unit. And install it, and also included with it was this rubber gasket of sorts. Now what it does is it goes around the speakers, and it helps. It not only provides a cushioning for the speaker against the dash, but it also it's like a surround to try to direct all the audio straight out or straight back, and straight back is where you get your bass. But anyway, so it did include that gasket also, which is actually, when I went on site and studied up on this, that is actually a optional piece that you pay extra for. All right, so the speaker assembly connected to the radio perfectly, no adaptions, and the whole unit itself, I was able to install it. And as you can see, as you've seen in the part 2 where I did the installation, it went good. It was fairly easy. Again, the hardest part is squeezing a large body down into that space. And that's got nothing to do with the radio in itself. So the 2 positives so far is I was able to install the radio and the speaker assembly into this truck with 0 modifications needed to be done to any part of that dash. That's good. That's very good. All right. Another positive was the wiring was labeled very good and easy to follow, and it had for the speakers, and also you know, I bought this used, but the person I bought it from, he must have, the speaker wires must have came with the speakers because they were polarized, so to where positive output from the radio went to the positive label on the speaker. You couldn't reverse it. You had small and large spade lugs, and that's the way it bolted up, and it was great. Plug and play. All right, so that's a good positive. Another positive was as soon as you turn it on, bang, you got sound. I mean, you've got like maybe a 2-second delay before you get sound out of it, maybe 3. I've got a big name aftermarket double din radio I put in my Ford, and it takes before sound even comes out, it takes like 10 seconds or more before it's booted up and providing sound. So it's quick. It lights off quick. It's got plenty of power. You know, these AD trucks, I have no sound insulation. The only insulation I've got is a small rubber mat that doesn't even cover the entire floorboard. And I did put weather stripping around the doors, and I did seal up all the holes I could find in the floorboard, the toe board, and the firewall. So I've got, you know, it's almost as quiet as I'm going to get it without having to actually put insulation on, you know, around to absorb the outside sound and the vibrations. And there is plenty of volume and fidelity of the volume to hear what I wanted to hear while I was driving the truck. Now, 50 mile an hour, this thing is turning 2,300 RPM, 22 to 2,300 RPM, and it's spinning. And you know, that's quite a bit. That's quite fast for these trucks. They and there's a lot of wind noise, and there's a lot of mechanical noise, and there's a lot of outside noise. I had no problem hearing it. So the audio and the audio quality was very good. The basic features are easy to use. Volume, selecting what input you want to run, meaning do you want to run the radio, do you want aux 1, which is on the front of the unit, which is good for like an iPod or something like that. Like a headphone type, what do you call it, eighth inch jack. And then you have aux 2, which is on the back, which is an RCA type. Then you have the USB, which I've been really using for my memory sticks that I've pre-recorded music on. And then you have Bluetooth for, let's say, your cell phone. Now I've got a Samsung with Android, and S7, I believe it is, S8, and it works fine. The telephone, another positive, the telephone interface via Bluetooth is good. When you get a call in, it displays on the display the caller ID number as well as incoming. And if you're listening to the USB, or if you had the optional CD player, it would pause the music while it's playing the ringtone that's actually generated in the phone. So if you have a special ringtone in your phone to distinguish between incoming callers, well, it plays that audio, which is good. My Ford doesn't do that. It has some kind of a can ring. That's what it does on that other manufactured radio. The audio is good. If you noticed in my videos, part one, I think, is I discovered that the mic lead, which is it came with plenty of wire to extend the mic it could go to the middle of the windshield and have enough to go down and route to the radio. It was cut, and I imagine he cut it to fish it in something. And so I soldered it back, and that repair was good, and it works fine. People hear me fine, I hear people fine. So the cell phone the Bluetooth cell phone feature is very good. Like I said, a call comes in, it's playing whatever whatever sound you have programmed into the phone to sound on particular people ringing in, calling you. And you get the caller ID, you get incoming, you get whatever you're listening to is on the USB or from the phone. It pauses, and you reach up, and the inside knob of the radio, you just turn it counterclockwise, I believe. If you go clockwise, it doesn't do anything. It's either one or the other, and you answer the call. And if the other end hangs up after the call, well, it goes back to whatever input it was playing. So if you're on the USB playing a memory stick, it goes back to that song where it previously paused. If you're on your phone playing via Bluetooth, it goes back to that song. Now, of course, it doesn't pause the radio. If you listen to the radio, wherever the radio station, wherever it's playing in, well then, it's probably a new song. Well, that's what you get. But there's no control over that. You can't, signal the radio station to pause while you talk. Anyway, so that positive, the Bluetooth cell phone feature is great. Now, I don't know about your states or your countries even, but here in Tennessee, they recently passed a law where it's against the law to have a cell phone to your head and talking while you're driving. Now, you can talk hands-free, all right? And but you can't have it. You can't be distracted with a phone up against your hand with holding it. If you have some kind of a headset, that's good. If the phone's your hands-free, that's good. Or if you have an interface like this radio, that's good. So that's good. I'm complying with the law now, because it seems like when I'm out on my cruises, I get a lot of calls like, where you at? When you coming back? You know what I mean? So that's a good positive, that the Bluetooth cell phone interface is great. Now, I don't know how it does with maybe I can try my daughter. She has an iPhone, but I assume, since it interfaces flawlessly with that Android, it should with an iPhone. And it remembers the phone, so when I get within range and I turn the truck on and the radio comes on, it automatically pairs. I don't have to go through the pairing process all the time. So that's good. All right, sound quality, I covered that. The equalizer, you can use one of the presets they have, or you can actually use the equalizer, which is bass, mid-range, and high. It's kind of basic. That's all you get. But I use that. I decided to use that instead of the presets, because I like to bring out the bass, and I like to bring out the treble, and I like the voices down, lower in the middle. And that works for me. That's just how I like to hear it. If I want to hear, I can hear what they're saying fine, and maybe it's the way my old ears are tuned now. I mean, I can hear good like that. If the mid is turned up too high, it's just overpowering, and you can't hear the fidelity of the instruments. So that's how I like. I like to hear the bass. I like to hear the cymbals. I like to hear the high end of a guitar playing, or a fiddle, or a dobro, whatever they're playing, and then I like to hear the bass fiddle too. So anyway, the audio quality is pretty good. I'm really impressed coming out of those speakers. Now, when I bench tested the radio, I had two larger speakers. I went ahead and tested the rear outputs, and they provided a great, big bass boost. and that's non-amplified. I kind of thought about wiring them in, but I thought, you know, they'll be down behind the seat and down low, and I wouldn't get the fidelity out of it that I think I would with the stock seat. Now, in that GMC where I got bucket seats, that's a different story, but with a stock seat, I don't know that you would want to run the rear speakers. And if you're running your truck, your AD truck, now I'm talking specifically about AD trucks, these type trucks, and I guess it could work for a Dodge or a Ford because their cabs are similar. You probably only, those dual speakers in the front coming directly at you is probably the best way to go. Kickboard speakers probably wouldn't be as good, or they may be good as the rear, as to give you maybe some more bass. But you definitely want those speakers right directly in front of you, because that sound coming directly to you that way will help cancel out all the external noises that these old trucks will do. I mean, let's face it, this is a 1949 truck. The radio didn't even come with it. I mean, that was an option. So they didn't. These weren't designed with internal acoustics in mind. That said, the acoustics aren't bad with this radio. So there you go. Any more positives? Let's see. The looks. It looks good sitting in there. It may be, I remarked in the video, it may be a little bit too much chrome, and that might be possible. It could have been toned down just a little bit, but I like chrome, you know. Chrome adds horsepower, right? So, but I like chrome. I'm from that era where, you know, the 60s and the 70s, and we also had 50s cars still running around. And I mean, when they made them custom, I mean, they chromed everything. So I like chrome myself. I think nowadays the style is kind of plain and black, or the lack of chrome, but I like chrome. Matter of fact, I think they call it the California look when you take the chrome off, but I don't know. I don't keep up with the fads anymore. I just know what I like, and I like chrome. So I think the looks of the radio is very good. Okay, I may think of some more positives as I go, but now I'm going to get to the negatives. The main negative I've got with this radio is the display. Out in the bright sun, you just can't see it. All you see is the AM, etched in AM designations. You know, you can cup your hand over it and you can make it out. You can really lean up and you can possibly make it out. But during bright daylight, that display is virtually useless. When I bench tested in here in this lighting, it was great. I seen it no problem. I've not driven it at night yet, but I have been in some of my cruises, I'm in very wooded areas where it blocks the sun, and I seen it there. So it's really just a situation with being in the bright sun. Now, I'm at the highest intensity it allows, and white. It has like 5 or 6 colors you can choose. White is the brightest. At the highest intensity, white is the brightest display you'll get. And it's just not that good in the bright sun. Now, the way this truck's designed, these AD trucks, the dash curves up. So the radio is really facing up, all right, at an angle up instead of straight back at you as more modern vehicles are. Facing up like that lends to the problem of the sun blocking it out. So really, it's a design of the truck as much as it is a lack of intensity in the lighting of the display. My late model Ford, with the different manufactured radio I've got in it, it has the same problem, and its dash it's down lower and it's sunk in more, and the radio is not aimed up, so it's somewhat shielded, and it has a problem in bright sunlight seeing it too. Now, I only say this because the display in that in my wife's car that has the OEM radio, now they've tuned that display to where it works. You can see it pretty good in the in bright sunlight as well as dark. So it can be designed. They can design these to have brighter intensity, but I don't know why they don't. So that's a problem. You're not going to see your display in the bright sun. All right, the next negative, and it's not really a bad negative, but I'm calling it a negative. And the positive first of this. The dials, the control dials on the radio are designed to look old school, and they do. Now, they have so many functions they have to do, it adds to the complexity. And the negative part is when you're listening to music, the knobs they don't control the features that traditionally were controlled by the older radios. Now, your left hand outer knob is your volume, that works good. Now, in the older radios, the inner knob was your tone. You know, you went all the way to the left, it was the bass, all the way to the right was treble. And anywhere in between, that's how you adjusted your equalizer. Well, on this, it selects, in one direction, it selects your input of what device you want to listen to, be it the radio, the USB, whatever. And then you turn it the other way, it either changes from clock to radio to display. Now, I like mine set to display the clock, but it's kind of crazy when I can't even see it. So, but you can reach up, like if you, in default, it displays the radio station and whatever their data they're providing. And you can turn it to the left, that inner knob, and it'll put the clock on for, I don't know, 3 to 5 seconds. Then it reverts back. It's a good feature, but it doesn't do what the old radios did. On the right side, this is really a sticker point to me. I haven't found any instructions otherwise. So the outer knob, what you would use to change your stations, well, on this unit, it searches. So, you know, there are stations that you can bring in, and apparently the searching, the phase lock loop, whatever circuitry they use in this radio to lock into the station isn't accurate enough, isn't as precise enough. It skips over stations that I can bring in when I put it manual. Okay, so that's kind of a thing. Now you go into program, you can change that knob from auto seek to manual. Well, what happens is that's only a one time. That's only for that particular time. So you go into program mode, which isn't hard. That's going into program mode is not hard. It's not a negative. It's somewhat easy. So you go into program mode. You turn the knob to the feature you want, which is auto seek, and then you don't hit nothing else, and you start turning it. And all of a sudden now it's turned into a manual channel changer, and that's good. So you can go find your channels that you want that it was skipping over when it's searching. And you can then hit the preset button if you want to program it on one of the 5 preset buttons, and that's a positive, all right? But what happens is after you do that, it doesn't remain manual, so you can select another station, right? Since it's back to search. So you got to go back in the program, and you got to tell it manual again to set your next station, or to fine tune that station. So to me, that's kind of stickler. Being old school, I would rather have manual tune and have that as my default and not the auto seek. But I can't change. It doesn't seem to be changeable. It's a one time per event type change. In other words, instead of being a permanent default change, it's a per event change. So I ciphered that out. There may be a way. If anybody sees this and knows better, great. Let me know. The inner knob. Now I'm still trying to cipher out my okay. That's the negatives there. I'm going to go back to positives. 5 presets, all right? Another positive, 3 FM inputs. You got FM1, FM2, FM3, and 2 AM. I really don't listen to AM much anymore because pretty much everything I listen to on the radio is on the FM dial. There was some stations on AM, but they've programs, but they're on FM now. So I don't hardly use the two. So it's a good thing. You switch. So you got actually you got 15 FM presets. You know, just by selecting which FM you want. That's a good thing. But I was almost losing my train of thought. I should have wrote this stuff down. This is getting long. But if you're listening to, like me, I love my USB memory stick. I've got all my music on there. You know, I'm 60s and 70s. That's my music. 80s, you know, there's some stuff. Yeah, there's some good songs came out in the 80s, but 60s and 70s is my cup of tea. That cranks my tractor. But anyway, I'm still trying to cipher that out. When you use two of the presets is skip up and artist, or skip down, or what they call folders. And I've put my music in folders. You know, I've got I probably have 30 some odd folders with over 100 songs, and you know the folders are identified by the artist. Okay, not by the album, but the artist. So you select the artist. You may have 3 albums in there, and you may only have certain songs in them albums, and that's how I do it. I use Windows Media Player to burn over to it, and it works great. You know, it does good. Now, what it does for me is I'm still trying to cipher it out. It skips when I'm going through folders. It skips some folders, and they just so happen to be my favorites. Now, how did you figure that, huh? If you go forward or back, for some reason it skips in folders. Now, if you turn the tuning knob, what would be the tuning knob while you're in it, it steps through, it has the songs numbered on how you've burnt them to the stick or synced them to the stick. So, and I'm learning this. It seems like a lot of my songs that I like start in the 40s, all right? They're numbered 40 through, and that's 2 albums through 50 something. Okay, so I've got to turn that knob, you know, like I'm tuning through a radio station to get to those that I can't get to by using the advanced on the folder. Okay, so I don't know why it's not recognizing in folders, but when I get to those songs, and it'll display the artist and the name of the song. So it's like the date is there. Why is it skipping it? I don't know. It could have been how I burned it. So it's not as how I'm used to. There's some back before I retired, I used a Ford and a Dodge truck, and both of them had these USB ports built in. And both of them, those factory radios, they were so easy to use and see. And it's like, why can't we get these aftermarkets to work just like that? This radio, so that's kind of a negative. The positive on the USB is it plays great. It plays real good. And like I say, I'm still learning it as I go, how to switch between to the songs I want. And maybe eventually I'll figure out why it's skipping those folders that I want it not to skip. And then the back knob, I'm trying to remember what it does, but it does something too. And repeat or not repeat. So you got to be careful with that, because it can repeat the same song over and over, and instead of going to the next one. But I figured that out. That's a normal thing. So that's not a negative or positive. That's just an operating manual. The manual's good. It's very explanatory. There's no installation instructions with it, so I'm going to assume that the unit came maybe when they bought it new. The individual I purchased the radio from, that it came with those installation instructions. But you can see from my part 2 video of this series that. All right, I'm going to try to finish this up. My battery went dead. What I was saying is, you could see from my previous video that the part 2, how easy it was to cipher out the install and install it without any kind of written installation instructions. So if I can cipher it out easy like that, I imagine just about anybody can. And then so the install was good too, and I'm gonna give that a thumbs up. Price. Now, I purchased this used from a fella that he said he's got I think he said he had a 51, and that he wanted to upgrade. Well, he had purchased a stock OEM AM radio, the tube style, that he wanted to put back in his truck. For why, I don't know. Show truck, I don't know, you can't already tell. And that he had owned this setup for less than a year. So I guess technically it's got a year warranty left on it, because it comes with a 2-year warranty, but I don't know if it actually follows, if you can actually sell the warranty along with the unit. So anyway, it had some scratches on the faceplate, and some other little nicks and dings, and one of the channel changing knob was bent a little bit. So he came down on the price real good on the setup. It was such a good price that I had to jump on it. I couldn't turn it down. It was only listed for maybe a day when I seen it, and so I jumped on it. It was a real good deal. We'll just put it that way. Now, brand new, the radio itself, it can market anywhere from $299 to $350, anywhere in that range, depending upon who's selling it, and I guess which way the breeze is blowing that day. The speaker assembly, it's about another $40, and that rubber gasket that goes around it, that's an additional, I think I seen where it was like $14 or $15. So you're looking at least, or close to, or around $400 for a setup like this. So the question would be, is this worth $400? Well, now that depends upon what you want. If you want good musical sounds in your AD truck, you want an AM FM radio, you want the USB, or you want to Bluetooth in to get these tunes, and you want all those features, then yes, it's worth it. There are cheaper models that Custom Autosound puts out that doesn't have the USB, that doesn't have the Bluetooth, that are quite a bit, less expensive than this premium. This is their top of the line unit, the 740. So you can get the lesser expensive unit and add Bluetooth to it. I noticed they had an adapter. How much? I don't know. I've just seen that. But if you want it all in one, and as you can see, it was compact enough to fit without me having too much problem getting it in. So it's all in one. The only thing it didn't have was the CD changer, which is optional. And well, who knows? We'll just see how I feel. But the way it is now, I've got most all my good CDs already saved over on hard drive on my server, and I just simply cut it. Well, not you burn to a CD, sync over to a memory stick, and it's just as good. And really, it's kind of better than a CD because you don't have bouncing problems, and you don't have stowage problems. You can have 10 times the music on a memory stick than you can on a disc, and you got to store the disc. So anyway, I probably won't go that way. So the value, I wanted tunes, and I was eventually going to spend that kind of money for this setup had this deal not come up. Who's to say another great deal like this won't come up? Who's to say I won't run across a great OEM AM radio and I decide I want to go back to being as authentic as I can, and I put this up for sale? You never know, you know. But again, I would have bought it new. So anyway, I'm giving it a thumbs up. I'm not sponsored. I'm not getting anything out of this. I mean, I didn't even buy the unit from them new, so they don't even know me. So I'm just going by what I've discovered with it and how it's been for me thus far. It gets a thumb up, and I do recommend it. So anyway, I hope this review has been helpful. It's certainly been long, and a lot longer than I felt, but then when you try to cover the bases, you know, that's what happens. So, have a good one.